get started here. We're so excited to have Todd here with us. This is our Lunch and Learn series here with our Cybersecurity Leadership Council, and we have representatives here. If they just want to raise their hands so you know who's on the council and helping put this together. This is our third event. We've had great attendance, as you can see in all of them. We're going to take a break over December for holiday season, but we'll start back up, as you can see, January 15th. But Todd here is talking to us about where am I at. And Todd is the co-founder and CTO of Secuvant Security Services here in Salt Lake, and his bio's in front of you, but I'll turn the time over to him, and then we can have some questions at the end, or whatever format works best for you.
Okay.
So,
thanks,
thank you.
Appreciate it. So, yeah, thanks for everyone for coming, and please make it interactive. Mouthful of sandwich, fine. Whatever you got, ask the questions. Please bring them on. By no means am I the end-all, be-all authority on cybersecurity, so this is absolutely should be and can be an interactive discussion with you. As we talked about, I wasn't able to attend the last part of the series in terms of how we roll into where am I from a cybersecurity. But today, what I've decided to focus on is understanding or helping you to decide or what questions you need to ask, a checklist of sorts, and inclusive of a checklist of sorts for you, your clients, companies, gosh, your home computers, whatever you have, of what you should be asking with regard to cybersecurity. So how do you discover where you're at with regard to your cybersecurity posture? That's the tack for today. Okay. As I mentioned, we're from Secuvant. That's us. Just the one upfront slide here. It will go forward. How's that work? What we do. So, for those of you who know who Secuvant is, a little bit redundant, and some of you are clients already. We do gap and risk assessments. We take the information from risk assessments, which is kind of what we're focusing on today, on the where am I. And we turn it into a risk program. We manage the risk and posture as a vCISO service, anything from policy and procedure to helping with controls with our clients on a risk program management. We are also an independent company. We don't sell any products. So Secuvant doesn't sell any tools, hardware, software, otherwise. We provide 24/7 managed detection and response. We have our own security operations center here in Salt Lake City. It's actually down in West Jordan, our operations center. If you're interested, you're welcome to come by and see it. Some of you already have. And then we do IR with our partners. We provide incident response and breach response with regarding if you ever do have a breach with regard to cyber. Okay, so every time you have a cybersecurity presentation, at least when I have a cybersecurity presentation or I see one, it always includes the obligatory you're going to get hacked, and here you need to be afraid slide. So I just needed one. You guys afraid? Okay, good. All right. So I wanted to show you a quick video on on something that can happen in your environment as well.
Let's get to work. Our little startup with a great idea. Their target, a ProPass. Offices in 12 countries, 5,000 staff. You'd think they'd be secure, wouldn't you? Make some noise. Pulse. A smoke screen. A decoy breach to hide what they're really after. Confidential information hidden in the depths of the system.
Still here?
No, the computer's crashed.
On the club. See you Monday.
It's okay for some. Right now, the chances are someone, somewhere, is attacking you. And you don't even know it.
Okay, chaps. We're in.
I bet you're wondering how they got this far.
Give us a smile.
Lovely.
She's in. sensitive passwords and system details from a keystroke logger hidden under a desk for 6 months. You got it?
Easy.
These guys, they know it all. Except, a few weeks earlier, a probas were hit by a smaller breach. It made the board stop and think how vulnerable they were. So they brought in the experts. It's never just an IT issue. They carried out cybersecurity training from boardroom to basement, identifying what was critical to the business. Threat and intelligence monitoring. They planned a cyber incident response and brought in their own ethical hackers to test the systems and make honeypots to trap the attackers. They reviewed the whole business from New York to Tokyo and devised a game plan for any breach.
Make some noise. We're in.
It's a denial of service attack. We're just monitoring the situation.
Have they got into any accounts?
Very clever. Someone else bangs on the windows, while you hide in the cellar.
They're onto us.
I'll try blocking.
Is it working?
I don't know.
Well, I need to know, Gil. Is it working?
Yeah, launch your work. These guys are good, they're really good. They're blocking us.
Try again.
They're blocking us!
Let's try again.
Straight to Gotcha. Good. I'm not good enough.
You're okay. Traffic's blocked.
You can win, but there's always a next time.
Who's next?
Crowbashing tech.
Criminals just get smarter,
Who have we got for the smoke screen?
Take your pick.
and they're everywhere. The breach will happen, and when it does, will you be ready?
Okay, that was the scary video part. Okay. In terms of the cybersecurity and being prepared, you kind of saw in the middle there when they involved the business, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Understanding and discovering. Hopefully, if you have had a small breach instead of a large one, you'll be understanding that and getting prepared for the next time it happens. So what the trade-off is in terms of where you are from a cybersecurity perspective always ends up being security and operational capability. What that means is that your cybersecurity is going to typically be overwhelmed or trumped by your operational capability. What I mean by that is if you are in the IT department and you have a server that is down, you are concentrating on bringing that server back up. You're not worried about the security of that server. At the time, your business is yelling at you, your customers are yelling at you, your website is down or otherwise, and so your operations are going to take precedence over your cybersecurity. The problem ends up being is that if you're an IT professional, you know that there's always a fire. There's always something going on operationally, every single day, all the time. So that's why we have to plan for a cybersecurity strategy to put it together. So we want to make sure that security and operations can be balanced out. So we can increase cybersecurity at the same time we increase operational capability. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about today. So these are the 7 steps to a business-driven cybersecurity plan and figuring out who you are and where you're going. And we're going to talk about each one of these. Each individual and each individual step is dependent on the previous activity. So this is in an order. You can do some of these things out of order, but it's recommended to discover your risk posture to do them in order. So let's kind of start off with first one, which is determining your business priorities. I know some of you in the room have already done this because we've helped you with it. But has your company, has anybody in your company actually taken and prioritized your business with a strategy with your CEO or CIO and your CFO, your C-level suites? Tell what it's going to accomplish regarding cybersecurity. Okay, it's rare. What ends up happening is that a C-level executive says, okay, we're going to take our cybersecurity risk. They're going to ask this question of you, if you're an IT professional, are we secure? Right? That's just a nebula. If you're a cybersecurity professional, you know that's an impossible answer. It depends, right? It's always the answer to that. So what they end up doing is they take that information, they say we need to protect our business, but they take it and we throw it over the wall to the CIO or to the technical director, and we say go make it secure, and it's up to you. But the problem that provides is that you're asking a technical executive in a typical organization, especially a small business, to make a business risk decision. Okay, so we need to have a discussion with our executives with regard to their risk posture. And most companies that we engage with read this right to left. Okay, so you start off with what's our operational problem? We need a firewall, we need an intrusion detection system, we need some antivirus, whatever. What kind of security tools are we going to buy? Let's find the budget. Let's go buy some security tools. And we get our strategy from our vendor, Cisco and Oracle and IBM, and they show up and they have all the cool boxes that are going to solve the world's problems with cyber. And so you buy a box, and then you go, okay, now what do we do with it? How do we fix the problem with it? Okay, so we're reading it backwards. So what we need to do is we need to start off with the business mission and goals and figure out exactly what the priorities are for the business first. And in our case, we use the Secuvant Cyber 7, which are the red areas: brand reputation, legal liability, intellectual property protection, and data protection, regulatory compliance and governance, business disruption, cost remediation, and business enablement. So if you can have a conversation with your team and with your executives to tell you, as IT professionals, what your cybersecurity strategy is, that's the first step in who am I, or where my cybersecurity should go. What should we focus on? If you're a manufacturing company, you probably have a business disruption problem. Okay? Redundancy, making sure that the widgets are running, making sure that whatever you're making is running correctly. If you're a healthcare customer, it's probably compliance and governance with some kind of HIPAA related component, right? Or a bank, maybe there's compliances first, and regulatory compliance. If you're a SaaS company, if you're an IT company, it could be any combination. It could be even brand and reputation if you're Amazon or someone like that. Okay? So focus on the 7 steps in prioritization. Here's the other problem. Is anybody in here have unlimited resources, time, and money? No? Okay. So you're going to have to prioritize. If you were going to raise your hand, our sales reps back here, Jeff's back here, he can talk to you. But if you don't have unlimited resources, we'll be happy to help you. What you need to do is prioritize so that you can do things that have the highest risk with the highest business priority first. Okay? All right. Here's the challenge that you're going to face, the new normal of security. So, security risk to the business is going up, right? Everybody knows that. It's in the papers. We know that. The problem is that over time, we have these downturns in business or upturns in business. Yours has maybe specific to you, but maybe 2000 comes along, maybe 2008 comes along, maybe there's overall economic issues. What happens is we right-size the business because we lower costs, we lay off people, we don't buy anything, we lower our budgets. And so we rationalize the IT budget. So in 2008, we saw this happen a lot. We cut your budget, and then nothing happened. Servers didn't crash, website stayed on, everything was still working. So the CEO goes, cool, we lowered our costs, but nothing happened in IT, everything's still good. And so then, here comes good times, boom times, business demand goes up. Well, servers are still running, guys, right? So the CEO goes, why should I give you more budget? I cut your budget, you still make things work. Okay, so they rationalize your budget. Well, guess what? Now security resources, people, technology, and so forth, they're in high demand, which means they're really hard to find. So they're harder and harder to find. Your business demand is going up and your budgets are static. That's what we call the new normal. So you're going to have to respond to the IT responds to business demand with called do more with less, right? So you're going to have to do more with less with regard to your cybersecurity to provide the same level of service as the business increases. So how do you do that? You have to automate, you have to provide technology, you have to prioritize, you have to find out where the business is important with regard to cybersecurity. Number 2, how do we find the gaps and risks? So pick your framework, all right? We got ISO 27001, we got CS20, we got PCI for credit cards, we got HIPAA for healthcare, we got NIST 853 based on federal government standards, we got NIST 171 for federal contractors, we got FAIR for risk-based frequency and loss, we got FFIEC for financial institutions. This is by no means exhaustive, right? There's more than this and more coming. On top of all this, you've got state and federal regulations on an ongoing basis. How about GDPR for those of you who do business in Europe, right? And coming to a state near you, right? So there's more and more. So you have to pick your framework to find your gaps is the best way to do this. At Secuvant, we use ISO 27001 and 2 and 5, depending on that, because we believe it's the broadest based, also covers international standards. But regardless, pick your framework to find your risks. I'm going to show you some of the checklists from the CIS 20. The reason I do this is because it has a technical focus. It is not as broad-based as ISO, and it's easy to accomplish, at least from the long short term. So here's a good checklist you can use. The first thing you need to do is find out. Here's the hardest part, and nobody ever does it, and it's always the #1 recommendation. It's #1 on CIS. What are your assets? What computers do you have? What systems do you have? What cloud infrastructure do you have? What applications are running? What users do you have? Count your users and assets, okay? It's rare that you have an exhaustive list. Most companies don't. But I guarantee you, if you don't have a list of your assets, both hardware and software, you can't secure them. It's impossible. The other part of this is this new thing called shadow IT. Anybody know what that is? Right? Okay? Someone pops out their personal credit card and signs up for a service, say Pluralsight, because they want to get trained. It's $39 a month, so they just pop it down. Guess where they're doing the training? In your office, on your internet. It's great. It's good. You're training your team. But now you have an application you have no control over that someone is paying for on their personal credit card. So how do you control that access? Times Gmail, times Yahoo, times MSN, you name it. So there's a bunch of applications I guarantee you either don't know about, you don't have asset lists composed, or you don't control it. Number 3, continuous vulnerability management, scanning and patching. If you don't do vulnerability scanning, you should. At a minimum quarterly, at an aggressive monthly, and if you're crazy, weekly. Okay? But you can. The problem with ends up being is too much cadence, is if you do a vulnerability scan and you get a list of vulnerabilities, criticals and high vulnerabilities, and you're not addressing them, and then you scan next week and you didn't address them, and you scan the next week and you didn't address them. Don't waste your time scanning, right? Do it monthly or however often you can do that. You guys know what Patch Tuesday is, right? You know what the next day is called, right?
Exploit Wednesday.
The Exploit Wednesday, right? And so Hacker Wednesday basically is when they already know the vulnerabilities are out there, because they know you as companies are not going to patch on Tuesday. You're just not. You're going to test it first. You're going to wait for the next month, whatever. Number 4, controlled use of admin privileges, passwords, and vaulting, identity and access management. You need to control the use of admin privileges. In HIPAA, it's required. If you're not controlling your admin passwords, you're not compliant to HIPAA, for example. So you need to control who has access, and that includes your internal threat, your admins. Well, you guys in this room. Control your own access. At least audit it if you can. 5, secure configuration for hardware and software, mobile laptop workstations and servers. And this includes created and tested. Do you have a configuration of all your routers and switches, firewalls and servers in a vault? And you do, and you copy that configuration on a weekly basis and compare to what's changed? Okay, that's config management. So if you want to know where you're at, who am I? Config management. Number 6, maintenance, monitoring, analysis of audit logs and SIM. Again, it comes back to the visibility here. If you don't know what you don't have, you can't manage it. And so what this is managing, once you get the assets assigned, you need to monitor them for threats and hits and hacks. If you aren't, the hackers aren't. Logging and visibility, just so happens that's what Secuvant does. Okay, that's the basic control list. How many of you in your companies have all 6 checked? Yet? Kind of? Close? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, good. All right. Then let's go to 7, 8, 9, and 10. Maybe my clicker will work. How's that? All right, foundational controls. So, email and web browser protections. So if you don't have a gateway filter type technology on your email, things like Proofpoint, Mimecast, something, you're probably getting a lot of phishing attacks. We'll talk about that later. Malware defenses. We're not talking about antivirus. If you have an antivirus tool you're not protected, you might as well not install it. Okay? You need some kind of endpoint threat analytics and isolation. So if you don't have some kind of endpoint threat analytics on your endpoints, that includes servers, mobile devices, laptops, etc., you need that. So take inventory of that. Limitation and control of network ports, protocols, and services. So this goes along with the vulnerability scan. We see this quite a bit. A number of ports are open, 445, 443, port 80, port 2021, whatever it may be in our clients' environments. We discover that, we tell them to close it, or we help them close it, they close it, etc. If you don't know it's open, you can't close it. So you need to understand what ports, protocols, and services you're presenting to the internet. Gosh, presenting to your other clients, partners, and vendors even. 4th, data recovery capabilities. This is where a lot of people focus, backups, right? Everybody has to have a backup. But are the backups aligned with your business? Which is 99% of the time it isn't. What I mean by that is your IT team goes, well, we back up every night. We have a 24-hour backup. If you go into the business and you say, how long can we be down? The business says, we can't be down more than an hour. Well, if you're down and you lose a backup, you've lost 24 hours of data, right? Because you're only backing up once a day. So your business is not aligned with your backups. Okay, so if they say only 1 hour, you need to tell the business we need more resources to do backups every hour, or else we can't meet that SLA. Number 5, boundary defenses. Standard stuff. The perimeter's going away though, but you still need firewalls. But what about cloud? What about VPNs? What about remote users? What about Starbucks? Okay, you have to protect those too. That depends on where your boundary is. So if you don't understand, you need to understand where your boundaries are physically. Data protection. So this is another focus, but it's in the foundational controls. It's interesting that it's not as part of the basic controls. That data protection is not the first thing you should be doing. The reason you shouldn't be doing data controls first is because you don't have understanding of where your assets and data are, you can't protect it. Makes sense. Data protections, we're talking about encryption, we're talking about database access management tools or DAM tools, web access firewalls or WAFs, access control, identity and access management processes and procedures. People. Number 7, controlled access, need to know. Do you classify your data? How many of you have a robust data classification process? No? Yeah, kind of? Yep. That's because all your stuff's Microsoft, Ed. No, I'm kidding. Of course it is. That's good stuff. So that, and that's helpful. So with the data classification process, what's sensitive data? What's confidential data? What is public data? What should be sent to whom and who should read it? And only sensitive data should be encrypted, or is everything encrypted? So that's why you need a data classification policy to understand what you're doing with that data. And also the separation of duties process as well. It goes along with that admin privilege control we talked about earlier. Security configurations. So secure configurations, your group policy objects in Active Directory, what are they? Are they default installed? Most likely they are. So you need to go back and look at the GPOs. If you don't know how to configure the security policies in Windows, you need an audit to tell you what's wrong. Do you have a hardened configuration of all your security policies? Find out. Again, this is about who am I. Go back, get a configuration of your GPOs and see what's secure, what is it? Compare it against the baseline. And that also includes rules, policy, configuration drift, and of course, those darn users. Okay? Question? Okay. Additional foundational controls, wireless access controls, rotate your keys, change your SSIDs on a regular basis, and set up some type of authentication on your wireless devices. This is a really easy hack vector for hackers, for wireless devices. In fact, it's a beautiful hack vector. It's wonderful. Love it. We love it from that perspective. Okay? Easy to get access. So make sure you control your wireless. Account monitoring can control entitlements, lockouts, and auditing of actual account entitlements as well. Who has access to what? All right. And then we get into the more organizational controls. So how many of you do security awareness training? 1, 2, 3, yeah. Automated, or how do you do it? Manual? Training your users.
Periodically throughout
Okay.
the year, and have everybody in a room.
Perfect. Richard?
I use KnowBe4 and then
So it's automated with KnowBe4, right? And Dan, what about you?
in person. It's the only way to go.
In person, the only way to go. Well, it is if you're smart like you. And so if you have someone who can teach them, that's a wonderful idea. Perfect. All valid capabilities. But make sure you train your users on site, whether it's software, whether it's in person, and make sure that you test them in some way to make sure it got through, right? Application software security. So secure coding, more advanced. If you have homegrown applications, you have developers, make sure that the code is secure. Do you know if it's secure? Okay, check. Instant response and management. When you get breached, do you have a crisis plan? Who's the first person you call on a breach? Dan? Dan. No, you don't call. You don't call him. You could. He'd be very helpful, actually. But you call your attorney first. Okay? Always call your attorney first. The reason you want to call your attorney first is so that everything's covered under privilege from that point forward. The next person you call is your cyber liability insurance company, because they'll probably engage and pay for the thing. All right? The next person you call, Secuvant, or your cybersecurity, or CISO, or your security team, your IT team, or our partners. And then you want to make sure you have that crisis plan in place for things like PR to manage the fallout. You need to do breach notifications with legal. You need to manage all of that brand reputation thing. And fourth, pen testing and red team exercises. Does anybody know the difference between a red team and a blue team? Dan?
Red team tries, blue team stops.
Yes, offensive and defensive, right? Most of us have purple teams, right? One guy who's purple, he does both offensive and defensive. Richard laughed because he's a forensics guy. He gets that. He's actually a red team guy. He knows that stuff. Yeah. Okay. So we want to make sure we understand. And if you do a pen test, by the way, if you ask a pen tester or a pen testing company to do pen testing so you meet your requirement, they're going to ask you about black box versus white box. And black box is, you just pen test, you don't give them any access, you don't tell them what it is, you just say, go after this app. A white box is gonna be, here's my IP addresses, try to crack it, get in, even give them inside access so they can try and break it and really get good information out, okay? So it's more informed, and it saves a lot of money, by the way, on white box, okay? Questions on the CIS-20? Is anybody using CIS-20? Do you want to? Because you're welcome to now, apparently. Good, it's a good start. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is 3. Now we need to baseline your maturity. So we went through the checklist. We want to know who we are. We want to do the risk assessment. We want to find out what we're doing. And we need to put this in some form, fashion, or other of a baseline. Because you don't want to keep repeating the same things. We don't want to keep evaluating our firewalls if we already have a firewall. We want to increase our maturity. So you need to understand, are you in a limited at-risk state? Are you in a reactive firefighting mode where operations always trump cybersecurity? Are you in addressing and reducing? We know what we need to do. We went through the assessment. We found our CIS-20. We know what we're doing. Let's start addressing some of the findings. Or are you in a proactive mode? We've already addressed our findings. Now we're doing monitoring. We're doing securing the cloud. We're doing anywhere access. We're really managing it. And then extreme, we're growing the business by using security. We actually use it as an enabler to our clients and to our business and to our employees. So where are you on that spectrum? It's a good way to set a baseline and then manage that maturity over time. Okay, let's talk about risk. So at the center of the world, data. From a risk management perspective, you need to understand that risk from a maturity process. Number 1, understand your data. And there's 3 things you can do with data. It's called the CIA triad, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. Do you need to protect it based on confidentiality because it's sensitive? Do you need to protect it on the integrity, like a credit card number, make sure 16 digits in, 16 digits out? Or do you need to protect the availability, uptime, make sure it's available to be used? It can be all 3. It can be 2, it can be 1. So once you decide where that data needs to be done, then you can do, and you identify a risk to that data. So I can say, okay, here's a risk to my data. If I don't have a firewall, that probably is all 3. But we'll focus on availability. If we have 1 firewall, maybe we need 2 firewalls for availability, for redundancy and uptime. So what do? We need to understand we have a risk. We only have 1 firewall. We could be down, so we have a foreseeable risk. So there's only 4 things you can do with that risk. Okay? Mitigate it. Put another firewall in, put it in HA pair, something like that. Accept it. We don't need it. We're good. 1 firewall is good enough. The risk reduction isn't worth it. Number 3, assignment. We can assign a risk to someone else. You assign your risk to State Farm or Geico or whoever your car insurance is. You assign your risk. Same thing to cyber liability insurance. Same thing to third-party partners of cybersecurity and your other IT partners. And then 4, ignore it. We know. We don't care. Okay? So you have that capability. So decide, you can do a risk assessment based on that. What ends up happening is you find out your risk posture in relationship to your security maturity. Now, this is a little bit of math, so I'm going to show you this real quick. Okay, this is where the asymptote comes in. We had a statistics guy, we had a conversation earlier. Okay, from a risk perspective, it's an asymptote. It never hits 0. Once you identify a risk, it doesn't go away. So you always have that risk posture, but guess what? You can spend as much money as you want. Feel free to. But you won't reduce the risk based on the cost spent. You can spend $1 gazillion and you won't get any less risky. Okay? So we have to find the optimal point. Okay? And the optimal point is the level of effort and investment that you make in cybersecurity. So what is the effort versus investment in relationship to your cost and risk? So how we do it is then you can assign any risk assignment based on that optimal level, because you still have a risk. Okay? So you can assign that risk at an optimal cost to things like cyber liability insurance or to third-party companies. So what we do is, remember that maturity model from 0 to 5? Let's find that baseline score. Let's say it's 1.78 on the risk curve from 0 to 5. And we're here at 1.78. So risk curve, we still have more risk to reduce. We need to get to a proactive state, let's say. That's optimal for our business. In addition, we're spending, say, 5% of our IT spend and budget on cybersecurity. So we're spending a little less than optimal. Gartner says about 6 to 7% of your IT budget should be spent on cybersecurity for small to medium businesses. Okay? So what ends up happening is, if your 3.5 on your maturity scale is your optimal with a 6% cybersecurity spend, you can see that you need to reduce risk by not spending more money. Any idea how to do that? Do more with less, remember the new normal? How do you do that? What you need to do is use the tools that you already have in place in a more in a better, more automated fashion. How many of you have tools and software in place that are using 20, 30, 40% of its capability because they only fit that specific need? Use it more. O365, for instance, we see this quite a bit, has a lot of capabilities at the different levels that aren't being used, like ATP and ATA and other features. One example. Maybe your baseline is really up here from a risk perspective because you don't have any policies and procedures in place. Doesn't cost a lot of money, write some policies and procedures, not spending really any money on it. You get the idea. So you have to understand what your risk posture is in relationship to your cyber spend and find that optimal level. Question? Okay. So at Secuvant, what we do is we take the business risk, Cyber 7, we take the risk posture on the score capability, and then we decide what the controls are by optimizing the findings, by some probability, impact, effort, and cost. So what is the cost of a solution to fix the problem? Confidentiality, availability, integrity, whatever it is. What is the impact to the business? Every time we go in, we say, hey, let's put two-factor authentication in, right? What happens? Typically, pushback, right? Everybody's going to go to a 32-character password tomorrow.
Yeah.
Everybody will love that, right? They're not going to do it, so you're going to have that's impact to your business. It may even be free. How many of you? I mean, we could easily increase to 32 characters tomorrow with Active Directory, right? It's even a free control, but the impact's too high. So the cost is low, but the impact is high. The effort, piece of cake. It's a button and a GPO. But what's the probability that it's going to reduce any risk? All right, and if you're already using 10, why go to 32 if the risk reduction is really, really small in relationship to the operational overhead? Okay? So take all your controls based on your business requirements, probability, cost, effort, and impact, and then figure out what control you need to put in place. Buy a firewall, put analytics in, whatever that tool may be. Okay, so here's what a risk register kind of looks like from a compliance perspective if you haven't been audited before, but this is kind of what we can manage. What is the threat? What is the foreseeable risk? What is the vulnerable entity that is going to hit by this foreseeable risk? Confidentiality, integrity, availability, impact, and overall risk, high, medium, or low. And then what the control effectiveness is if it's in place. Okay? Two-factor authentication. Foreseeable risk is successful phish, credential harvesting, loss of data. User accounts, email, and sensitive data are the vulnerable entities. And it is a overall high risk. Okay? So now you can easily see, this is how we find out where we're at in our cybersecurity posture in relationship to our business. Okay. And then 6, implement controls. And there's 7 to start. What's our time? Do we know what our timing is? What time we're done?
42.
When do we wrap up?
And deadline.
Okay, so we're good. All right, so implement controls. I'm just going to talk about 7 to start. These are the 7 we're going to go over them real quick. Whoops. First, diagram your assets off. Okay? So if you can't secure what you don't manage, so let's talk about architecture components. Segmentation. This is physically segmenting one network from another, whether it be a DMZ. Anybody know what a DMZ is? DMZ. Demilitarized zone, right? Physical isolation of internet-facing devices. Good idea. Can be a cost consideration, because you might need 1 or 2, 3, or 4 firewalls. But it may be a virtual consideration, may be an impact consideration. You decide. Do VLANs count as segmentation? Sure. But again, it's virtual LANs. So reducing management, broadcast domains, and ad groups. But it's easy to bypass a VLAN with heart poisoning and other attacks. Whereas a physical isolation or air gapping literally can't be overcome from that perspective. You guys use Lucidchart? Seen the guide logo? Great diagramming tool, easy to use. So diagram your assets. Asset management, usually in your help desk software. So put all your assets in a help desk piece of software. Something like SpiceWorks, which is free, has some asset management capability in it, and it has some help desk capability in it as well. And then follow the data. Map the traffic of the network too. Not just the devices, but where's the traffic going? From what switch to what router to what internet connection to what users. Okay, so that's it. You need to follow that as well. Okay. So here's some diagramming stuff. So in terms of DNZ segmentation around firewall sandwich capabilities, we talked about web application segmentation for e-commerce servers, things like JBoss, all your web applications. Proxying, so jump boxes, proxy servers, gateway capabilities, isolation for segmentation using gateways. And you're inside your network is always the soft squishy part. Okay, you're always going to have vulnerabilities inside compared to the outside. And then database networks. Databases go there. And then management and segment for IT assets and types. Okay. Visibility and monitoring. So ask yourself, what is your strategy around visibility? What are the business needs and risks? What are you trying to manage to? What are you trying to look at? What are you trying to prevent? And it's more is better when it comes to visibility. getting all the log sources, getting all the servers information, firewalls, intrusion detection, syslog information. Try to get that information so that you can correlate it and manage it, including endpoints and wireless devices. And then decide what you want to monitor. North-south, which is internet connectivity. East-west, which is internal to your network. And east-west is 10x plus the traffic types. So if you say we want to monitor east-west, people logging into Active Directory, for instance, it's going to cost you more money than monitoring just your north-south. Cost everything, not probably. User activity, logins, lockouts, admins, jobs, generic accounts, centralized collection, logging, analysis, and incident response, okay? Here's passwords, the perfect solution for passwords. No? Yeah, I know. There's definitely no perfect solution for passwords. Unless you guys have a way to eliminate passwords. Anybody got any ideas? Seriously, I would really like to know. But fix them, I guess is a better way to put it. So, are they strong or aren't they strong? Make sure it's a test of whether they are strong. You can go to howsecureismypassword.net, and you can plug in any password. So you're trying to use a password, know if it's secure or not. You can go to that website, plug in your password, see if it's secure or not. Just something. GPOs. The default installation for GPOs is caching 10 of the last login passwords for administrative users and regular users. I don't know if you do that or not. And that cache is easily taken by Mimikatz, which is a hacker tool, right? It's a forensics team stream, because we can go back and look who logged in the last 10 times, but it's also a hacker stream. It's easily to pull those out of memory. We know your last 10 passwords. More than likely, you've used those passwords somewhere else, like on your Gmail or your banking account. And some to check, there are about 50 of them. So terminal servers, interactive logins, network access, user accounts and controls, any kind of shutdown, scripts, jobs. Make sure you change all those too, not just your user password. Okay? Security awareness training, we talked about this. This is Udemy if you want. You can do cybersecurity awareness training for free. Yeah?
Increasingly, people are using password managers.
Yes.
What would Secuvant think about password managers?
Love them. Yeah, you have to use them. And we're not talking about a spreadsheet as your password manager. Even though it's managing passwords, right? Yeah, right. So LastPass, exactly. On a corporate scale or on an enterprise level, we're talking about CyberArk, Beyond Trust. Microsoft has a great vault. Absolutely. And more than likely, you probably own the control in Microsoft if you have a Microsoft shop, and you're probably not using it. So that's one of those do more with less things, opportunity-wise. And so that's a great way to do it, too. We love those. And then there's an enterprise version of LastPass you probably know about, right? Which is really very, very useful. So yes, please use them. And then also YubiKey. You've probably seen the big press announcement on Google and all their companies using YubiKey. That's a good one, too. We like YubiKey as well. Especially for administrators. You don't have to do that for all your employees, but for admins. All right, cybersecurity training. Do this, do this, do this. This is the best defense, and it's the #1 attack today, which is BEC, business email compromise, and phishing attacks. It's #1. So we see at Secuvant all day, every day, and it's because a user clicked on something. Okay, hard to protect against stupid. It's going to happen. Okay. Lunch and learns, webinars, posters, the bathroom, compliance and governance, HIPAA, PCI. So why it sucks? Okay, this is why a lot of people don't do it. It's just, if you do once a year, check the box, nobody really cares. You did it and nobody really knows. Or management doesn't care, so nobody takes it seriously. In fact, typically the people who don't take the tests are your executives in the first round, we find. Training doesn't really measure vulnerability, so we need to look at that. And usually your biggest risk. Today, and today only, no, it's not today only. We're offering a phishing test if you want it for free. So we have a free phishing test. If you want us to phish your users, just let me know. We do both a spear phish, which is targeted, and a general phishing test. It's free. So if you're interested and you want to sign up for it, let us know. Happy to do it for you. Okay? And then take your passwords. No, I'm kidding. It's just a test. Back up your data. Yeah, we're talking all of it, and we're not talking about just what's on your laptop or your servers. Okay? OneDrive, bless you. Dropbox, all of the remote access, all those files that you don't have any idea where they are. We call this data sprawl. You need to back up that too as well. If you get ransomware and you don't have a backup, you're pretty much done. Right? And then you could back it up, and you did a really good job at it. You could back it up every hour. But if you don't test, see if it was backed up, and you could restore it, how worth is it? You know, it's also worthless. So 3-2-1, right? The 3-2-1 strategy. Keep at least 3 copies of your data. Use 2 different storage types, and keep at least 1 copy in a physically different location. Easy strategy. Evaluate applications that need to be backed up. So you need to understand, again, that business alignment, 1 hour to 24-hour thing. So did you data classification? What about your endpoints? Test, then restore. And then first roll back up. Hard drives fail. Okay? They will fail. It's part of the process. Don't forget to manage the backup users in AD. Okay? They have a lot of privileges. All right. Write a policy. So, policies. How many have a full set of policies and procedures? Yeah, Dan does. Yeah, okay, 2. Okay, good. Beautiful. Share them, please. Okay. So, policies, I'm pulling up my Bible terminology here. Policies beget procedures, procedures beget standards, and standards beget guidelines. So, policies are what you should do, thou shalt nots. Your procedures are how you're doing the policies, implementing them. Your standards are the tools, process, procedures that you're going to do to put those in, what kind of tools you're going to be using. And guidelines are suggestions of how to implement the standards. So policies, get procedures, we got standards, we got guidelines. Please do them. There's a thinking out there from the legal community and others, and we have a legal mind that works for Secuvant. Some of you know Matt. He and others, they talk about, let's not put procedures and policies in place because if we have them, we have to do them. And if we don't do them when we get sued, we're going to lose. All right? So if we don't have them, we don't have to do them. Well, I hate to tell you, there's laws on the books called the FTC and HIPAA regulations. They'll require you to do them. Okay? That's probably part of the rule. Vulnerability scans. Scan it, then fix it. So external scans, internal scans. You can use Nessus. You can use Rapid7. You can use OpenBoss. So do more with less. Free. Okay. You're going to get less information from an OpenBoss because they're open feeds, not pro feeds. You don't pay for them. But you can use paid solutions like Nessus or Temple. Just do it. If you don't know the vulnerabilities and you cannot fix them, if you can't do this or can't afford to buy the tools, use a partner that does it. Secuvant does vulnerability scanning if you're interested, and it's just easy to do. And then your team, your IT team, can go about and fix the patching the issues and fixes and reports. Okay. A vulnerability scan is worthless if you don't use it. So it's typically categorized as critical, high, medium, and low. From a compliance perspective, you have to address criticals and highs. That's part of what they tell you from that perspective. But please address the criticals at least. So get the critical. If it is a critical, it's a critical for a reason. So get it done tomorrow if you can. And then work on your highs in chunks and then rescan as you chunk these off. Don't scan again until you address the majority of the issues. And then look at the CVEs, do your research, understand what the vulnerabilities are and the exposure to your vulnerabilities, which is a brief description of the security vulnerability or exposure. So you go all the way back to the beginning of the presentation when we talked about risk management, what the risks are, do we have risks, what the foreseeable risks are, and to what entities. CVEs can tell us that. You need to know where that information is. Okay? And then other stuff outside of the 7 that you can start tomorrow. Identify, protect, respond, and recover. So if you have, the CIS 20 we went through, 20 different items. If you don't want to do that, if you want to say, Todd, I don't have time for that. Give me something even more simple. Do that. Identify, protect, respond, and recover. That could be your strategy for your IT team. So identify what you have, protect it, detect vulnerabilities and threats, respond if you get breached, and recover from that breach, including backups. So that's a good strategy. VPNs, easy to set up, so why aren't you using them? If you're not using VPNs for remote access, you should be. Local admin privilege and user accounts, restrict them, get rid of them, audit them if you can. Endpoint protection, don't use AV. Find a tool that actually works. And then encryption. Make sure if you can't do a data classification policy in a surgical way, encrypt everything. It's actually cheaper from an operational perspective. May not be from a tool perspective, but it probably is operationally to manage it that way. Okay? I talked really fast today, but I'll go. Hopefully you got something out of it. So the 7 steps from a risk management program. Find your business priorities and find your gaps. Create a baseline maturity model of where you're at. Analyze the risk versus costs so you can optimize those things that are free. Create a risk management program. Again, cybersecurity is a program, not a project. It doesn't end. Implement the controls and then optimize them on an ongoing basis. Okay? Was that helpful? Hopefully I didn't speak too fast. Any questions? Comments?
Just one.
Ed.
I mean, if you're looking at the CIS 20
Yes.
and the tools that you already have in the kit, if you start mapping, and we actually went through an exercise of mapping the CIS 20 back to the Microsoft stack.
Cool.
And there's like at least half of those protocols that are covered under your Office 365.
Right.
Solution.
If you use them, right?
Yeah. So when we talk about, how do you do more for less. I mean, if you are a Microsoft shop and you're using Office 365, some of those tools, you can really start doing a great job if you implement them of addressing some of those risks. Definitely first five in there, and that's where you want to start is first five.
I agree. Thank you for that. It's an easy do more with that. And the GPOs, even outside of Office 365, you have Active Directory internally. Even with Azure AD, if you can really lock down those GPOs, most clients do not. In a surgical way. Okay. Any other issues, comments, questions? Yes, sir.
How do you protect something simple like OneDrive? I mean, the presumption is it's safe, but
Yeah.
how safe? Not that safe.
Data is as safe as you want it to be and how you use it. So typically a OneDrive vulnerability or a OneDrive issue from a data perspective is user-based, not necessarily related to OneDrive, the technology itself. So how the user uses and stores the data on OneDrive. Then, as you probably know, that you guys use OneDrive, it becomes another folder on your laptop or desktop. So even though it's physically in the cloud, it's still on your desktop. So if your desktop or laptop gets compromised, OneDrive is compromised too. So it comes down to endpoint protection of how you're accessing the data. So it's not about OneDrive being secure or not, it's more about how you're accessing it on a laptop, on a mobile device, who's the user. Are you using 2-character passwords to get to your OneDrive? Okay. So it's more about the procedures to get to OneDrive itself. If you were not to ever access files on OneDrive, just put them there and not access them, they're pretty darn good. But again, remember that operations versus security? There you go. That's the problem. There are cloud drive vendors out there that aren't secure. So be careful, especially the free ones. So Google Drive, for instance, the free Google Drive, not secure. Dropbox, free one, not secure. So just be careful of those. And they're okay, they're great. If you put your pictures up there or your recipes or something like that, they're great. But don't put your financial statements up there. Would be my recommendation. Or at least encrypt them. Does anybody use or like a specific encryption capability or tool? You know of one? Because most people struggle with, okay, I want to encrypt, what do I use, right? What do I do?
Yeah, I like BitLocker because it's easy and it's free, included on Windows. You just got to turn it on.
Perfect. So do more with less. Perfect example of that.
Right there.
Back to Microsoft. What's that?
FileVault on Mac.
Good. FileVault on, yeah, comes with it, right? If you have a Mac, you probably know this. If you don't, you can encrypt your entire hard drive for free. It just comes in. So, but don't do it in the middle of your workday because it takes hours. So turn it on at 11 o'clock before you go to bed. Watch some Jimmy Kimmel or something and let it run until you in the morning. But yeah, it comes free. Perfect. I like that. And then in transit, standard SSL encryptions, TLS encryptions for all your web server. Make sure you have the right certificates, not self-signed. Actually buy one from a third-party CA. We see that quite a bit as well. So in transit and at rest. Anything else? Yeah.
Two-factor authentication.
2FA. Have to.
Totally underutilized.
It is. And again, with O365, it comes with it. So turn it on for O365 for your email. Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator for one-time passwords on your phone. It's not the best, but it works. Try not to use SMS, because SMS is easily compromised, even though it's better than nothing. Getting a text of your one-time password, not as easy. Not as secure. And then even more secure going to a hard token like YubiKey. And then there's soft tokens, which makes it easy from an operational perspective, where it's transparent to the user. It's a token loaded onto their device. Their device becomes a thing that you have. So only that person can log in on that device. So soft tokens are a great way to go.
And that's what Microsoft wants to do, eliminate passwords, 2FA with biometrics.
There you go. Yeah, especially on your mobile device, right? Because we already have, most of us have biometrics on our phones already.
So you'll open your laptop, you'll scan your fingerprint, you'll get a 2FA to your Authenticator app, and now you verify who you are.
Yes. The trick becomes applying that across everything, right? From Chase Bank to American First Credit Union to email, right? That's the hard part.
Yeah, my question about that is, like, when you do that kind of thing, there's always going to be some kind of workaround, right? Because if something happens to the person who owns that device, like they get in a car accident or whatever, somebody has to access that information, there's got to be some way that's already built in to get around it. So does that even make a difference, right? Like somebody's laptop, you just put your finger on it. Can't you just get around that anyway?
There are ways around it, yes. The easiest way around it is have the admin password. That's why everybody's going after those privileged accounts. And that's why we mentioned privileged accounts like 6 ways per Sunday. Because the God account or the administrative account, that's the back door to almost everything. So that you really you're right. So you have keys to everything. There's a key for everything. And if you get access to that key, that's why, for instance, if you encrypt on your hard drive, do hard drive encryption or file encryption, if you have a valid ID and a password to get to that drive, it's worth it. What good's your encryption? To your point, it's a valid ID and password is actually a back door to encrypted hardware, right? And so yeah, you're exactly right. So my response is defense in depth. Do your two-factor, do your encryption, change your passwords, do your GPO, restrict your admin passwords to the CIS 20. Really, that's the answer, is multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was a silver bullet, not yet.
Yeah.
That's why there's no perfect passwords yet. If someone wants to be rich, figure that out, right?
No users.
Oh,
There you go.
Trevor's right. You got it, man. Just get rid of the darn users. Cool. Okay, we're right on time. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.